He built it with his own two hands. Every street, every porch, every wall. He poured the concrete before the first moving truck ever showed up. But now, they look at him like he's trespassing. Samuel Harris wasn't rich, wasn't flashy, just a man who could build anything except respect in a place that decided he didn't deserve it. He stepped out of his old pickup, boots worn, hands rough from years of work, and before he could take 10 steps, here comes Ryan Miller, new money, new attitude, and a tongue too quick for his own good. Back gates that way, Ryan said, like Samuel was a yard boy, like he was lost in some world he had no business walking in. Samuel smiled, the kind of smile that says, "I heard you," but not the kind that says, "I care." "I'm headed to the Johnson place," he said. "They've got a loose step I'm fixing." Ryan laughed. Not a funny laugh, the kind that drips with disrespect. "We work hard to live here," he said. "We don't need random guys walking around." Random guy? The man was standing on concrete Samuel had poured, breathing air in a neighborhood Samuel had designed. Then Ryan made the call, and 10 minutes later, here came Becky Hollingsworth, HOA president. Perfect hair, perfect nails, perfectly fake smile. "Sir, are you lost?" she asked. And there it was again. That word, lost. Like Samuel didn't know exactly where he was. Like he hadn't signed the first deed in this neighborhood. "I'm here for a repair," he said. Becky's eyes scanned him like he was a stain on her carpet. "Without uniform, without appointment, we have standards here." Standards. The kind that always seemed to change whenever someone who looked like Samuel showed up. "Escort him out," Ryan said. "If the Johnsons need help, they can call approved contractors." So Samuel nodded, turned around, and walked away. They thought they'd won. They thought they'd pushed out the stranger. What they didn't know? The stranger owned the dirt under their houses, because Samuel never sold the land. He leased it, 50 years, with one very specific clause. Any violation of civil rights provisions? The lease is void. The land returns to Samuel Harris. And that little uniform rule they tried to throw at him? That was the exact violation he needed. He made a phone call, and a week later, Ryan and Becky were sitting in a courtroom, faces pale, whispering like they could talk their way out of a storm already breaking over their heads. Samuel walked in, boots polished, suit pressed, no toolbox, just a folder. Inside, every blueprint, every contract, every signature proving this neighborhood existed because of him. The judge read the papers and looked up at Samuel. "Mr. Harris," he said, "these terms give you the right to reclaim the land immediately." Ryan's smirk disappeared. Becky's smile shattered. "I'm not here to evict anyone," Samuel said. "I'm here to remind you, you don't decide who belongs in a place I built." The judge stripped the HOA of its authority, effective immediately. But Samuel wasn't finished. That night, he opened new blueprints for a development right next to theirs. He circled the land, smiled to himself, because Phase 1 was done. And when they found out what Phase 2 was, they wouldn't just question who belonged here, They'd question how they ever thought they could stop him. They thought it was over, that Samuel would take his little courtroom win and fade back into the background. But Samuel Harris never built anything halfway. Not houses, not neighborhoods, not victories. Phase 2 wasn't about getting even. It was about changing the map, literally. Because while they were busy decorating their porches and holding HOA meetings, Samuel was buying land, one lot at a time, quietly. An acre here, half an acre there, through shell companies and silent bids, until he had enough to wrap their precious neighborhood like a noose. The land was just dirt to them, but to Samuel, it was leverage. It was the future. The permits went through without them noticing. The city council stamped the plans before the ink on their outrage dried. By the time Ryan Miller saw the first bulldozer, it was too late. "What's going on over there?" he asked a foreman one morning. The man shrugged. "New mixed-use development, stores, apartments, community center." Ryan's face tightened. Apartments! That was their nightmare, because apartments meant those people might move in. Ryan wasn't the only one. Becky Hollingsworth called an emergency HOA meeting. They sat around their polished oak table, talking about property values and preserving the character of the neighborhood. But they never said the real word. The one they were choking on: change. Becky decided she'd go straight to the city, try to stop construction. So she marched into the council building in her pearl earrings and pastel sweater, demanding answers. And that's when she saw the name on the project file: owner, Harris Development Group. Her face went pale, because Harris wasn't just the man they'd pushed out. He was now the man building right next to them. She called Ryan in a panic. "This can't happen! We'll be ruined!" But Samuel wasn't building ruin. He was building something they'd never seen before, something they couldn't control. The first sign went up: Future Home of the Harris Center, Community Resource and Cultural Hub. Oh, they hated that. Because a cultural hub meant events. Events meant crowds. Crowds meant people they couldn't keep out with gate codes and HOA bylaws. And when the community meeting happened, Samuel invited everyone, not just the residents, the gardeners, the housekeepers, the delivery drivers, the people who worked in the shadows of those million-dollar homes. The meeting was standing room only. Samuel stood at the front with his blueprints, explaining his vision: affordable units for young families, shops owned by local entrepreneurs, a park named after his father. It wasn't just development, it was history. It was pride. But pride looks different depending on which side you're standing on. Ryan stood in the back with his arms crossed. Becky scribbling notes like she could lawyer her way out of this. They didn't clap when the crowd applauded. They didn't smile when elders thanked Samuel for bringing something for them. Because for Ryan and Becky, it wasn't about the neighborhood's growth. It was about their grip on it slipping away. Days later, the games started. Noise complaints about construction at inappropriate hours. Petitions claiming the building would block sunlight. Even fake reports to the health department about unsafe conditions. But Samuel had expected it. Every permit, every inspection, every legal detail was airtight. And then came the first crack in their wall of power. A young couple came to Samuel after a meeting. The husband worked in construction, the wife in real estate. They'd bought one of the smaller houses in the neighborhood, but the HOA treated them like intruders from the day they moved in. "We're tired," they told Samuel. "Tired of fighting for a place we already pay for." Samuel listened and smiled that quiet, dangerous smile because he realized something. Phase 2 wasn't just about building next to them. It was about building an army, one neighbor at a time. People who were tired of being told they didn't belong. People who knew the value of a home wasn't in the price tag, but in the welcome you got when you opened the door. By summer, the Harris Center's frame was up, and so was the pressure. The HOA filed a lawsuit claiming unauthorized commercial development. Samuel didn't even blink, because the contract they signed decades ago, the one that gave them their lots, it also gave him the right to build community facilities on any adjacent land he owned. When that little detail came out in court, Becky's face fell like a house of cards. The next week, Samuel got a call. Ryan wanted to meet, not in public, oh no, behind closed doors. Ryan leaned across the table, trying to sound calm. "Look, maybe we got off on the wrong foot. We can work together on this." Samuel tilted his head. "You mean you want a say in something you tried to stop?" Ryan forced a laugh. "Just think about the kind of people this will attract." Samuel didn't raise his voice, didn't even frown. He just said, "Exactly the kind of people I'm building it for." Ryan's jaw tightened, and that's when Samuel dropped the last nail in the coffin. "You should know, Phase 3's already in motion." Ryan blinked. "Phase 3? Samuel stood, collected his folder, and walked out without another word. Ryan sat there frozen, because if Phase 2 had them panicking, what was Phase 3? Weeks later, strange things started happening. Surveyors walking the edges of the neighborhood, architects studying the streets, city officials doing traffic assessments. The residents whispered. The HOA demanded answers, but Samuel said nothing. And then, one morning, Becky opened her mailbox and found an envelope. No return address, just one sheet of paper inside. A printed notice from the city. Preliminary approval granted for rezoning application. She read the words twice, her hands trembling, because rezoning meant change on a scale they couldn't stop. And next to the approval stamp was the signature of the applicant, Samuel Harris. She called Ryan immediately. He didn't pick up. She tried again. Still nothing. And as she stood there in her doorway, she heard the sound distant, low, but growing louder. Engines, heavy machinery, coming straight down their perfectly paved street. Her phone buzzed, a text from an unknown number. "You told me I didn't belong here. Let me show you what belonging really looks like." She ran outside just in time to see the first truck turn the corner, and what was strapped to the back of it made her knees go weak.